Okay, good evening. And on behalf of the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization, thank you for attending this evening's Civil Rights and Outreach virtual public meeting. I'm Melissa Moore, the Public Outreach Coordinator, and I will serve as the moderator for the meeting. Please know that this meeting is being recorded and the recording will be shared on the public comment webpage, and you can access the public comment webpage at www.sjtpo.org/public-comment, as well as SJTPO's YouTube channel at SJTPO. You'll also receive a follow-up email tomorrow, which will also have the recording as an attachment. I would also like you to know that many of tonight's slides have been pre-recorded, but I will be popping in throughout to administer some polling questions. And lastly, if there are any technical difficulties, we would greatly appreciate if you stayed with us. Thank you. A few items of importance. SJTPO solicits public participation without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status. All attendees are in listen-only mode and will remain in this mode until the question and answer session towards the end of the meeting. At that time, if you wish to comment aloud, please use the raise your hand feature found in the control panel and you will be unmuted. If you do not wish to speak, please use the question box, also found in the control panel. Staff will be monitoring the box throughout the entire presentation. Please know that your control panel may be minimized. To expand the panel, click the orange arrow, which will allow you to see all engagement functions. Here is an agenda of items we will go over this evening. As this is a 1-hour meeting with a lot of information to cover, you will now be introduced to the Civil Rights team. Alan Huff, one of 3 program managers at SJTPO, serves as the technical manager for the Limited English Proficiency Plan, also known as the LEP plan. Alan aids Melissa Moore with her civil rights efforts, as she serves as the Title VI Coordinator and Technical Manager for the Public Involvement Plan, also known as the PIP. And lastly, Jennifer Marandino, Executive Director, oversees the organization and the overall civil rights process. For those new here today, SJTPO was formed in 1993 and is one of the 3 metropolitan planning organizations, also known as MPOs, in New Jersey. MPOs are required in urbanized areas with populations of 50,000 or more. As a reference, the SJTPO region has a population of approximately 568,000. SJTPO provides access to federal funds, serves as a technical resource, and works to promote state and federal planning priorities in Atlantic, Cape May, Cumberland, and Salem counties. The work of SJTPO is guided by the Technical Advisory Committee, also known as TAC, and the Policy Board. The TAC is comprised of planners and engineers from SJTPO's member counties, and their collective expertise helps guide technical activities. The Policy Board is comprised of mainly local elected officials of SJTPO's member counties. The Policy Board takes the recommendations of the TAC, SJTPO staff, and the public and makes the final decisions. SJTPO's civil rights activities are guided by 3 plans, 2 of which are new as of 2020. These plans include the Title VI Implementation Plan and the Limited English Proficiency Plan, also known as the LEP plan, which I mentioned earlier. The Title VI Implementation Plan lays out the processes in place within the organization to prevent discrimination and how staff evaluates and reports on the program's success. The LEP plan identifies the populations with limited English proficiency and assesses SJTPO's efforts to ensure meaningful and appropriate access to these populations. The Public Involvement Plan, commonly known as the PIP, has been an established plan at SJTPO since 1999. The PIP was most recently revised in November of 2020. The PIP outlines the outreach methods and requirements staff follow to ensure planning efforts include the public to the greatest reasonable degree. We will now go more in depth with each plan, starting with the Title VI Implementation Plan. The Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is the landmark act that prevents discrimination on the grounds of race, color, or national origin in programs or activities receiving federal financial assistance. This plan is fundamental to SJTPO because it addresses how staff will abide by related laws, executive actions, or court rulings. Additionally, the plan details staff duties and assesses the level of equity in SJTPO-funded projects, establishes a Title VI coordinator, who is currently Melissa Lohr, and details how a person or a group of persons can file a complaint. The Limited English Proficiency Plan is guided by the United States Department of Transportation LEP guidance. The main purpose of this plan is to describe how SJTPO complies with the requirements to fairly serve populations with limited English proficiency. The Safe Harbor provision details the circumstances in which SJTPO is to provide translation of written materials for individuals in the region that speak English less than very well. The primary LEP language in the SJTPO region is Spanish. Thus, SJTPO has established a list of vital documents that will be translated into Spanish. Vital documents help residents and stakeholders understand SJTPO's purpose and importance in the region. SJTPO is aware of secondary LEP languages in the region, including Chinese, Vietnamese, Gujarati, and other Indic languages, which can include several languages. Materials will be translated into these secondary LEP languages upon request. In an effort to be transparent and provide a meaningful and beneficial outreach process, SJTPO maintains a public involvement plan. As with the previously mentioned plans, federal guidance is included in the PIP to acknowledge how regulations are met. Further, the PIP outlines the tools and techniques being used to engage all segments of the region's public. The most recent update, completed in November of 2020, refers to the newly completed Title VI and LEP plans and the use of virtual public meetings, which began due to the pandemic. As mentioned when discussing the LEP plan, SJTPO has an established list of vital documents that help residents and stakeholders understand SJTPO's purpose and importance in the region. These vital documents, as seen here, include but are not limited to the LEP plan, PIP executive summary, Title VI materials, and an executive summary of the budget for the organization, also known as the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. The executive summaries are meant to be a more concise version of the full document. The executive summaries will be provided in Spanish since it is the primary LEP language of the region. Executive summaries will be provided in the secondary languages upon request. The request form can be found on the LEP webpage, which can be reached at www.sjtpo.org/LEP. Continuing on, SJTPO is dedicated to providing targeted multilingual outreach on projects in areas with a non-English speaking population. SJTPO will provide a translator or interpreter as well as other accommodations at meetings or events if requests are made at least 7 days in advance. Language detailing how to make requests is included in all public outreach materials distributed by SJTPO, including newspaper advertisements, emails, and flyers. Plans prepared by SJTPO are made available for public review and comment for at least 30 days. The only exception is the PIP, which has a longer public comment period of at least 45 days. Staff aims to make the public outreach process as easy and accessible as possible by hosting in-person meetings. of course, when COVID is not a factor. Virtual public meetings with call-in options, including a toll-free number, recordings of the virtual meetings available on the website and SJTPO's YouTube channel, information and fact sheets available on web pages, and surveys, online comment forms, and direct messaging of SJTPO's Facebook and Twitter accounts to submit comments. Okay, so we're now going to get into the polling questions for tonight's meeting. And the first one is, let me bring that up and launch it. What ways do you prefer to get information and provide feedback to SJTPO? Select all that apply. And that could be in-person meetings, virtual meetings, post-recorded meetings, online to view at your leisure, succinct information on web pages and fact sheets for easy reading, or surveys, online comment forms, and accept feedback via social media. Okay, so it looks like everyone participated, so I will now close the poll. And so it seems people would like to or prefer to get information and provide feedback via virtual meetings, succinct information on web pages and fact sheets, and even surveys, online comment forms, and to be able to submit comments via social media. We'll have 5 questions in this round, so let me bring up the second one. And this question asks, would you be less inclined to attend in-person meetings held at any of these venues? And again, you can select all that apply. Public libraries and or community centers, houses of worship, so that could include churches, government buildings, both municipal and county, informational tables at a mall or a community event such as a festival, or you might be comfortable with all of these meeting venues. Okay. And it looks like this person would be less inclined to attend in-person meetings if they were held at community events or a table at a mall. Again, I said we have 5 polling questions, so we'll go on to this one. What days generally work best for you to attend in-person or virtual meetings? And you can select all that apply for this question as well. So would that be weekdays, weekends, or it's hard to say since your schedule might change? So here are the results, and it seems weekdays generally work best. Now we're getting into what times generally work best for you to attend in-person or virtual meetings. And much like the other questions, you can select all that apply. So morning, 9 a.m. to 11, midday, 11 to 1, afternoon, 1 to 4, early evening, 4 to 6, or evening, 6 to 8. And I'll just give everyone a few more moments. Okay, it looks like everyone submitted their questions or their responses rather. And it looks like morning and early evenings work well. And then this will be the last question for this round. And we would like to know, what is the furthest you're willing to travel to an in-person meeting if the issue was of interest to you? And for this one, you can only select one response. So maybe you don't have time to travel, but you would participate online. You're willing to travel up to 15 minutes, up to 30 minutes, or possibly over 30 minutes. Okay, let me close the poll. And it looks like the furthest you would be willing to travel is up to 30 minutes. So thank you for that. We'll get we'll continue on with the presentation, and then I'll be back in a few slides with a few more polling questions. Thank you for the feedback. When preparing to release a document for public review, SJTPO reaches out to community and nonprofit groups to share the comment opportunity. SJTPO is working to improve this process as feedback has been limited. Of significance is the establishment of a community outreach and engagement committee. The committee is in the process of being established and will include a diverse makeup of individuals who best represent the region's demographics. The purpose of the committee is to provide feedback on SJTPO's most critical activities and will likely be made up of individuals from community food banks, family, community, and social services centers, and ESL classes. I apologize for that. It seems like the polling questions didn't close. So we'll just continue on with the next slide. Again, sorry for that. To reiterate, SJTPO aims to make the outreach process simple and accessible to all. SJTPO maintains Facebook and Twitter accounts, which provide the latest information on SJTPO happenings. Email blasts are sent regularly, including the distribution of SJTPO's digital newsletter, referred to as On the Go. To subscribe, locate the Join Our mailing list at the bottom of any page of our website. Major announcements are posted to the homepage of the website, which also provides a live update of SJTPO's Twitter feed. If you prefer non-digital forms of communication, SJTPO places legal notices for public meetings and comment periods in the press of Atlantic City, the Daily Journal, and the South Jersey Times. We are also looking for more community groups to share our announcements with, so be sure to make a note of any groups you are aware of in the chat. Okay, so we're going to get to our last polling questions for this evening, and then we'll get into the question and answer session. So let me pull up our first question. What are the best digital ways to inform you and the people you know about public input opportunities? And you can select all that apply. So would that be social media, Facebook and Twitter, social media, other platforms? And if you select this answer, please use the chat function to inform us of what those platforms are. Email blasts to our email list, announcements on SJTPO's website, and notice via community groups, such as digital newsletters and emails. And I'll give everyone a few seconds to fill this out. Okay, it looks like everyone voted. And it looks like social media, meaning Facebook and Twitter, are good ways, along with email blasts from SJTPO's email list, and then notice via community groups, which is good. And on to our last question. What are the best non-digital ways to inform you and the people you know about public input opportunities? You can select all that apply. So would that be legal notices in the press of Atlantic City, Daily Journal or South Jersey Times, notices in other papers, and much like before, if you can note those papers in the chat, that would be great. Flyers and handouts available at community centers or buildings, direct mail postcards, or other ways. And again, please note that in the chat if possible. And I'll give everyone a few moments to complete this. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. And it looks like flyers and handouts available at community centers or buildings, direct mail postcards, and others. And like I said, please feel free to add that others category in the chat, and I'll be sure to check on it in a moment. Okay, so we are now going to get into the question and answer session, but I first want to say thank you for all of that important and insightful information. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, for this question and answer session, you can either use the question box or you can use the raise your hand feature, and I will unmute and call upon you. So let me see if there are any questions that we have. Okay, so this person was just saying that for the last polling questions, they selected other, and they think that print articles in local newspapers would be a good way for us to spread the word non-digitally. So thank you for that. So it looks like we do have a few questions that came in. The first being, you mentioned being able to provide accommodations when requested. Can you explain in further detail? Sure, I'd be happy to. I will say that SJTPO is new to providing accommodations. You might be aware that we have a public meeting taking place this Saturday, and that meeting is taking place in Spanish, and the translator will be provided through the multilingual outreach study, which is a current study that we have going on. Unfortunately, when this study ends, we won't have a translator or interpreter readily available to us. And so staff has to do some research. We have to reach out to local businesses that offer translation and interpretation services, and we have to see how we can get them under contract. In terms of what other accommodations we can offer, I would say at this point we can offer closed captionings. So say if someone has like a hearing impairment, we would be able to accommodate this person because we know PowerPoint and GoToWebinar, which we're actually using tonight, offers that feature. Other than that, that's pretty much all the accommodations we can offer at this point, but in the coming months, staff is really going to research and hopefully get people or businesses under contract so that we can offer an array of accommodations. So I think that was a really good question. Our next question that we seem to have, it says, during the polling questions, you mentioned in-person and virtual public meeting options. Once we are able to gather safely again, do you think you will continue to offer virtual options? So I would say we would continue to offer virtual options only because we recognize how busy everyone is, and the times that we meet might not be best for everyone, and maybe someone's only willing to travel 15 minutes when our meeting is 30 minutes away, at least from their home or place of work. I will also say that when we can meet safely, we will go back to meeting in person, only because at this point we feel that we're not reaching those disadvantaged communities, and that could include people who have limited or no internet access, or those that might not have devices such as smartphones, tablets, computers, and we really need to get those people's feedback. But again, I think we will continue with virtual for the time being, and we'll include it as a segment in our outreach activities, but we won't be relying on it solely. Let me see what else. Someone just mentioned in the chat that you also have, I noticed that you also have accommodations on your website. I think that is a great feature. Yes, so thank you for actually bringing that up. We worked, I would say a few months ago to get this feature implemented. It's on each page of the website, specifically the home page. You can go on our website, www.sjtpo.org, and you'll see a little icon. For me, it shows up in the right-hand corner, so I hope it would for you as well, but it has all sorts of accommodating features, like it can make text bigger, it can even, I believe it can read the page aloud, it can color contrast the screen if necessary, so thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. I'm also seeing that we have one more question. How do I join the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee? So I would say, first off, thank you for your interest in that committee. I would say that our goal for the committee is for it to be comprised of members that work with and are involved with local community organizations and nonprofit groups. The main objective of this committee is for members to provide feedback on our public input opportunities and to ultimately spread the word about those involvement opportunities. So we are in the very early beginning stages of putting together that committee, but more information will be forthcoming. So thank you again for your interest. Let's see what else. It says, without any translation under contract, how would you translate documents in other languages? So I would say this is something that we're working on. I did mention our multilingual outreach services contract, and as part of that contract, we had our consultant look into the best online translation features, and I didn't read through the whole document, but I believe that they were suggesting using Google Translate. Obviously, like I mentioned, we do want to be able to get a translator or an interpreter, a physical person, but Google Translate has come a long way. So I think if necessary, we would rely on that for the time being, but we're not going to rely on that solely. Okay, so that looks to be like our last question. I'll go forward with our last slide, but if I can always come back to the question and answer session if any more come in. Oh. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is our last slide. Before I let everyone go, I would like you to know that all plans and comment opportunity information is available on the public comment webpage, which I mentioned at the very start of the meeting, and here's actually the web address. You can also complete a comment form located on the public comment webpage, and it's located towards the bottom of the webpage. We also have several email addresses set up, and those are plan-specific email addresses. So for example, if you were commenting on the public involvement plan, you would email PIP at sjtpo.org, or if you were commenting on the limited English proficiency plan, you would email lep@sjtpo.org. But again, all the information is on the webpage. We also have a fax number available. You can direct message us on Facebook and Twitter by searching at SJTPO. I check the I check the social media accounts daily. And then you can also just regular mail, you can send us your comments. We also will have the recording available on the public comment webpage and our YouTube account, but again, you'll also be receiving a follow-up email tomorrow, which will include the recording as an attachment. A few more things to note: we are welcoming comments through Sunday, April 18th. So if you say you have comments, you think of something after the meeting, you can always email us, use the comment form, or if you want to spread the word about the civil rights and outreach involvement opportunity, we would greatly appreciate that. And then the last thing I have for you is I want you to know that all of today's comments and all comments moving forward, or ones that we already received, will be provided in the final corresponding plan. So if you comment on the PIP, that will be included in the PIP plan. If you comment on Title VI related material, that will be included in the Title VI plan. So let me see if we have any more questions. Don't want to miss any. It doesn't look like we have any. So with that said, that's the end of our meeting. I greatly appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us and to comment. I think everything that was mentioned today was really great. So with that said, have a great evening and take care.